live. You're good to go.
Okay. I'm going to call to order the February 22nd, 2021 regular meeting of the Tipp City Board of Education, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dave, and whenever you're ready for the attendance.
President Dunaway,
Here.
Vice President Zakor,
Here.
Mrs. Dahl,
Here.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Here.
Mr. Patrick.
Here.
All present counted for this evening. There is a quorum tonight, Madam President.
Okay, great. So we're going to start with the approval of the agenda. Mark, did you have anything to add, or are we going to do that after we approve
I was
it?
going to see if there were anything.
Yeah, does anybody have anything to?
So I make the motion and then the second, and I'll make my announcement.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll make, go ahead. You might make
I'll
motion
motion.
and I'll second. Motion seconded by Mrs. Zakor. Mrs. Dunaway, is there any discussion on the agenda? Any additions, changes?
I have one.
Well, I knew you did, Mr.
comment, yes,
Stefanik.
Since you told me I had one comment, I have one comment. So,
What would you like to add to the agenda?
well, we want to take this opportunity because of our new format in board meetings. We put new hires and retirements in our consent agenda. So it doesn't give us a chance to either introduce new people or congratulate folks as they announce their retirement and decide on the next phase of their lives once their education careers are over. So on today's agenda, we have two very committed and veteran educators that have announced their retirements. Ms. Sandra Beck, 37 years to educating youngsters, and she will end her career as a teacher at Broadway Elementary. And then Mr. Greg Southers, 35 years serving students, and he will retire being the principal of Tippecanoe Middle School. So again, two folks retiring over 70 years of dedication to the education community. So congratulations, thank you, and good luck in your retirement to both of these fine individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanik. Any other changes to the agenda? Dave, ready for the roll? Oh,
Signing all the words.
thank you.
You're welcome. Well,
Zakor,
yes.
Dunaway,
Yes,
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
motion carries. Okay, where are we? Sorry, I'm still firing up my laptop. My laptop died.
MBCTC minutes
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so
or
we have,
committee reports. I'm sorry.
yeah, so we have committee reports, and we do have an update from Mr. Gilmore. And also, one thing I wanted to add to committee reports, if there's ever a board member who wants to report on anything that you did, during your committee, like Simon has facilities, Simon and Ann, I know they had a anything. You can either email me ahead of time or just add it here. So I'll take this opportunity to ask, is there any board member who wants to do a quick committee report update or anything?
I will.
Okay, good. I'll let my laptop keep firing up. Thank you, Ann. Go ahead.
Okay, we had a policy committee meeting on February 16th, and it was myself, Neola, Norm, and Mr. Stefanik, Mr. Stevens, and Simon's on that committee too, but he couldn't make that one. And it was a monster meeting, I think 38 policies, including the legal alerts. And I just want to say how much I really enjoy them, honestly, because I learned so much. And Mr. Burkhart, is that his last name, Norm?
Yes, yeah, Norm.
He's great. He's just great.
You like that?
And I really value what Neola does for us, because I mean, that is just, and by the way, it's my understanding the reason we had such a monstrous amount is a lot of that just gets dictated by statutory changes and regulations, and we have to stay current with it.
Yes.
I have a couple things. The first, yeah, I regret I wasn't able to make it. Unfortunately, for some reason, I got left off. Completely innocent accident, but I got left off of the scheduling of the meeting, and I found out about it that week, and I was already previously scheduled. But that same week, I also had a facilities committee meeting where we met, and then we discussed kind of where we were going. I think, I don't want to speak for the committee, and we're going to be looking to circle back here, but where we left it is that we were reaching out to OFCC based on previous board discussions to see if there's still funds available and what that would look like. Mr. Stevens, I think, was going to be doing an analysis related to our ability to get funds. We were going to be looking at if we have any potential costs, increases, things of that nature. We were going to be looking for some documentation related to some plans that had been kind of a last-ditch effort to the extent that we don't have funds, and then revisit those. And then based on all that information, we're going to come back to the board, probably in a work session.
Sure.
With a recommendation or for more guidance, depending on where we end up.
Great. Well, thank you. Anybody else have anything on their committee reports? No? Okay, great. Moving on to citizen comments. So yeah, thank you, Joelle, for bringing the paper. While Joelle's getting that paper, I just want to bring up something from last month. And citizen comments would be covered by board, thank you, would be covered by board policy 0169.1. Thank you very much. And just a few things from last month. If we look at the board policy, item 9, the presiding officer may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. So we just don't want people coming in here and directing their comments at specific board members. It's supposed to be directed at the entire board. And if that were to happen in the future, I would have to, ask the person very kindly to leave, because that's not the purpose of citizen comments. Citizen comments are an opportunity for citizens to come in and do just that, comment. It's not to engage with board members. We're not here to answer questions. It's not a two-way dialogue. And also, for whatever reason, it was brought to my attention that somebody thought that the board did not thank our last citizen comment person, which in fact I did. I don't know if anybody else did or not, but I very definitely thanked the person who came in by name. And that's the end of it. That's what we always do. We just say thank you, and then we move on with our meeting. That's just the procedure that we've always followed. And then the other thing I wanted to address, which is very important, because one thing the 5 of us did last year was we added a second citizen comment to our meetings to accommodate people who can't get off work in time to be at the board office, to sign in at 6 o'clock, so they can come in at 7:30, be placed on this list to do a citizen comment. That was very important to the 5 of us, to give everybody a voice. And people were alleging that this board does not read all of the citizen comments, specifically during COVID. And I took that personally offensive, because I know that nobody here would do that. And we did have a lot of citizen comments during COVID, and myself, Mrs. Dahl, and Mr. Stevens were very careful about, did anybody email just you? Because sometimes they email Dave, sometimes it's me and Dave, sometimes it might be Mr. Stefanik, and it's easy to get lost when there's 8 or 10 and they're emailing different people. To my knowledge, we did not ever leave anybody off. And had we done that, I'm sure they would have said to us, hey, you did not read my comment. And there were a few times when myself and Dave even wrote back to the person and said, is this a comment in general, or do you want it to be a citizen comment? And both times they said, oh my gosh, thank you. No, just a comment. Do not read this. So if that did happen to anybody, or if it ever does, please let us know, because that would never be anybody in this room's intention. I know that for a fact. So with all of that,
but we're not currently doing written statements.
No,
right?
but during COVID, I think that
Okay.
they said we weren't reading, that we were withholding citizen comments, and I don't ever know of that happening.
Okay.
So I just wanted to address that, because that attacks our character, and I'm not going to stand for that. It's just wrong. So tonight we have Don Watson. And you have 2 comments here. So if the board would be obliged, would it be, hey, Don? Is he out there?
I think sometimes he likes to.
Yeah. Don, do you want to do your comments separate for the whole meeting, or would you like us to give you 5 minutes on both at the beginning? It's up to you.
Well, at the beginning, it'll be all right.
Okay, so you know the process. We need you to state your name, address, group affiliation, and what you're commenting on. Do you need this back, or you good?
Yeah, I'm Don Watson, 335 West State Route 571, Tipp City, Ohio. I'm a taxpayer and an alumnus, and I have 2 or 3 different things to discuss.
Hang on for a second, Don. I don't see the clock starting, Dave.
Yeah, I haven't done that. Go ahead.
Okay, hang on, Don.
Okay.
We'll give you 5 minutes on each. So first is hang on a minute.
It's going.
Okay, go Don.
Okay, one thing I wanted to comment on, I saw in the Tipp City Neighbor, I don't know if you looked at it, it was, what is your working genius? I looked down through it, they listed 6, but what this author has done has taken 6 and cut out 11 of the 17 gifts that are listed in the Bible. So I just wanted to highlight that. He didn't name them the same, but the 6 he named are in there. Just one of them has the same name, the other 5 don't have the same name. So he's writing as if it's a new discovery, and it's been in the Bible for hundreds of years. So if you looked at that, you may want to look over that. Another thing I wanted to question, and Mr. Stefanik, if you could give me an answer, is on the tickets for the tournament for girls and boys. The last time I heard Governor DeWine speak, he said that an event could have up to 300 people. And so I wanted to question, because I called the athletic office and they told me they weren't giving no tickets out for the tournament. And the girls' tournament's already started. They've won 1 game and tonight's their 2nd game already. So if you could get back with me, I'd like to go watch the girls. I haven't been able to see them all year. So that'll be coming up in the next week. Depends if they win tonight or not. The other thing I wanted to speak to was the building status. And I wanted to reiterate that in 2016 and 2019, that we had a bond issue. And then a year ago, last August, that would have been the year before you came to town, Mr. Stefanik, they had a preliminary discussion whether to put it on the ballot a year ago, November, about a bond issue. And Greta Crumpf, previous to that, we had a meeting at the Broadway, like a community meeting, and she told us of how if the school was going to not fix up Broadway, how they would disperse it by public auction. And I just want to refer to that as the private sector, and it doesn't have to include me. I would be interested, could bid on it at public auction. Many different things could be done with it, with the community being involved. Another thing I wanted to talk to was a week ago Saturday, I was downtown Tipp and met a lady who I didn't know, but she was very hateful toward you, Teresa. I hate to point you out, but
Okay, I'm used to it, so go ahead.
okay. She just went on and on and on about what you do and what you have did and da da da. And I let her know that that wasn't true.
Thank you, I
She
appreciate
needed to come to the board meetings and see that you put your front foot forward. And then I was secondly upset because a good friend of mine, Gordon Honeyman, called me and she had confronted him about you. And I don't even think she knows you,
Most
but he
people do.
was very
Oh, I
upset
don't.
because he has been following the Tipp Pride thing and he put $26,000 in it. So he's interested in the finances of the Tipp Pride.
Mhm.
And I told him that it should be coming out public if it's an arm of the school. And this lady informed me that it wasn't going to come out public. And so that's another question that I would present, that to find out, for the board to find out where Tipp Pride stands.
Mhm.
You know, I can reiterate that when I went to the Tipp Pride meeting, with Jerry Borchers, they kicked us out because we weren't supposed to be there. And I thought Tipp Pride was an open community thing. So I took Jerry Borchers because he's probably the most experienced builder in the Tipp City community with his experience and age, plus his connection to Mrs.
Don, that's 5 minutes. Are we doing more?
Oh, he got 10, 5 on each. First he was on the tickets and now he's on the building. So hang on for a second, Don.
That's fine.
How's that leave you, Dave?
No, we're good.
Okay, go ahead, Don, sorry.
So lost my train of thought.
You said Jerry Borchers was the most experienced.
Yeah,
Okay.
builder, and that's not that we agree on everything, but his mother, his former mother-in-law, who his father passed away, left her $45 million. And he wanted to be an influence on her and the community as far as towards the stadium. He still has contact with her. So I think being kicked out of the meeting from Tipp Pride was a foolish thing when you're dealing with people that have millions of dollars and they're trying to raise 5.5 million and they only raised 1.5, which is kind of a disgrace, really, if you look at the size of the project. And then I wanted to mention about the building program for the future. I know when we were having the open meetings that it was talked that Gary brought up that the next building program would be $50 million. And I think this is crazy because if you couldn't pass one at 35 million, why would you think you could pass one at 50 million? And I think the, what's it called, CFC, Columbus, they must have made a big mistake, I think, because you look at the schools as a community center. And when I was in school, we had practice fire drills and practice bomb shelter drills. And a friend of mine that was in the Air Force, he keeps me up on subjects. He worked in the nuclear silos in North Dakota. He was telling me that the other day, he gave me this article, Can America Win the Next Big War? And it's mostly about China and Russia, how they have developed the hypersonic ballistic missile, which we have no defense for. And he says this area is number 4 in the hit zone. North Dakota, where the silos is, Colorado, New York City, and Dayton, Wright-Patt Air Force Base is the largest Air Force base east of the Mississippi, and it was 4th on the list. So I think if you looked at building something, that you would want it to be a shelter of atomic structure. And really the structure of Broadway is more than any building they put up today because it has block, clay like block on the walls and everything, where nowadays you just have drywall, 5/8 fireproof drywall, which if a missile was to hit, people, if their homes were not destroyed, or if they were destroyed, they would want to head to the community, just like when tornadoes hit. The school becomes the community source for a public gathering. So I would look strong at the Broadway building as far as, yeah, it needs air, new windows, and maybe a pitched roof, but you can't build all that and get the same protection that we had in that building in the bomb drilling exercises that we did in the 60s because of the walls that are in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We can pass it down to Dave. Thank you, Dawn. See you, Mr. Watson. So TCEA comments, there are none this month. However, I will say that, thank you, Heather. I always kind of send her an email to see if they're going to have comments or not. And it was actually her suggestion that we announce the retirements and the new hires separately, because we have it in the consent agenda now. And I feel like sometimes we come in here, we do our jobs, and because we used to pre-COVID, I remember Galen always introduced them and they would come in with their family members. So anyway, thank you, Heather Yunker, for bringing that to our attention, and glad we could get that fixed. I feel like it's very important. So, okay, president comments. Congratulations to Heidi Allen. She is our National Merit Finalist. What a prestigious honor for her. And I don't know how these students are notified. I don't know if it's in the mail or at school, but to me, I wish it was like a publisher's clearinghouse thing with Ed McMahon, because how wonderful. I would love to see the reaction of the student, the family who has worked so hard to, to achieve this. She, by achieving this honor, she represents less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors.
Wow.
Less than 1%. That is so amazing. Congratulations, Heidi Allen. Well done. That is absolutely wonderful. So that's my president comments. I love when I have a good one like that. So exciting. Treasurer's report, Dave.
All right. I'm looking for a motion to approve the monthly financial report for January 2021.
I'll make the motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion seconded by Mrs. Dunaway and Mrs. Dahl. Comments, Dave?
Let me just check here. Nothing out of the unusual to report. Just to note, general property taxes, the comparison between January this year and the previous 2 years, we didn't receive anything this year at this time. And that wasn't because we didn't want to get the tax advances from the county auditor's office. They didn't provide an opportunity to receive any tax advances in the month of January this year. So we did receive our first request during the first request time period in February. So that's just a timing issue as always. Nothing else to really point out if it hasn't been discussed in the comments section of the report. Anything that I can address for the board members?
I saw that there was the $30,000 donation from Mr. Barnhart to the Tipp City High School.
In January of 2019.
Yeah, did they ever decide what they wanted to spend that money on?
They have been working to upgrade the shop and update it. I believe that there's also been a plaque with Mr. Barnhart's name on it outside dedicated to him.
That's awesome.
So yeah, they've currently been working on safety upgrades and things of that nature for that facility.
And Mr. Stevens, this is not audited, correct?
That is correct. These are not audited statements.
And so just so everybody understands, I would be abstaining on this, and that reason is because it's not audited.
Any other comments? Ready for a vote, Dave?
Okay, Dunaway,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Abstain.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item B,
Looking for a motion for approval of the fiscal year 21 appropriation amendments.
I'll make the motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second, Mrs. Dunaway and Mrs. Heatherly. Are there any questions for Dave? Ready for a vote, Dave?
Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item C,
Looking for a motion to approve ORC 5705.41 purchase order certification then and now fiscal year 21 for January.
looking for a motion in a second.
I'll move.
Second.
Dahl and Zakor. Are there any comments or questions for Dave?
So Dave, how does this end up on the then and now? Were you supposed to get this from the middle school coach or?
Yes, this should have gone through the middle school. This reconditioning of football equipment usually has a weird timing because they're not even going to give the equipment to them and until,
August?
well, we don't even get the invoices normally until July. So this is done way in advance.
Okay,
So this is not something that we have not seen before.
okay.
But yeah, we usually don't see a bill until July 1st.
When they go and pick it up.
Uh-huh.
Got it.
So, and that is the only item on the list this time.
All right, thank you.
Ready for a vote, Dave?
Dahl,
Yes.
Zakor,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item D,
Okay, looking for a motion for approval of the rates of tax to be levied for school purposes on the general duplicates of 2021, subject to any additional levies approved by vote.
motion in a second.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Heatherly and Mrs. Dahl.
I apologize for the lengthiness of that, but this comes straight from the resolution that the county auditors ask us to approve. So every year on an annual basis, Tipp City receives an estimate of the amount of money that we will receive in taxes from the county auditor's office. They provide us with the collection rates. It's not estimated. These are the collection rates that have been put in place to provide us with this funding. And we as a board are required to approve those rates and send them back to the county auditors. This is one of the items that all 5 board members are required to sign.
Yeah, so nobody leave tonight because I have it sitting.
We'll pass that around after this has been
Yeah.
approved, but I can note that I did go through and recalculate all of the dollar amounts and everything matched up with what the county auditors provided to us.
So Dave, we received another document talking about the city looking at creating zones for abatements.
Mhm.
Is that at all reflected in here?
No, if there is a tax abatement zone in there, then the county auditors do not account for it within these numbers.
Okay, so these are only actual taxes that we're receiving. So this would
Correct.
not include any taxes. There's no accounting in here for tax that could have been
Abatements.
collected but wasn't.
Correct. The
Okay.
dollar amounts that they provided to us are only on assessed valuations,
Okay,
on taxable assessed valuations.
Because an abatement isn't.
right, that would make
So
it
that's-
untaxable.
Right, so that's
Correct, yeah.
$450,000, right?
All right, thank you.
Okay, unless anybody has anything else, Dave, we're ready for a vote.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes,
Dunaway,
Yes,
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
motion carries. Item 7, old business. Is there any old business?
I think I'd like to bring something up.
Sure.
So we received a letter, the 5 of us received a letter from one of our stakeholders, and it was related to, will Tipp City Schools be looking at the platform for the 2021-2022 school year? Currently, we're using PLP, and I think some of the questions in there merit discussion. And I know you may not be in a position to answer them right now on the spot, but at some point, I think we probably should revisit that topic so that there is an opportunity to discuss what the plans will be looking into. Will we be contracting for a platform next year or not? I think a lot of it depends on what's going on with COVID, but just wanted to make sure I got that out there.
Yes,
because
I
some of you
agree.
probably had the same sort of, I didn't know how to answer some of the questions.
No, that's a great question. And if it's okay, Mark and I were going to, Mr. Stefanik and I were going to do that at the work session.
Great.
Because I anticipate this probably being a somewhat of a lengthy conversation. And there were some very good questions in there. And this gives Mr. Stefanik and Mr. Verhoff and their team. So I guess instead of sending an email, I can just say it now. Thank you, Joellen. If anybody does have specific questions, please send them to Mark. And then Mark and Steve will work on that. And we will have a conversation at the, I think it's March 9th work session. I might have the date wrong.
March 9th.
Yeah, March 9th. Is that okay, Joellen?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And just as an FYI, I'm not sure I was attached on that email.
Oh my gosh, you weren't? I can
so
send it.
I don't think you were.
If
I thought you
somebody
were.
if somebody could forward that, then that'd give me a head start.
I am so glad you said that. Okay.
So if I'd like to.
We had somebody with a
Sure.
specific one question about PLP, but I didn't get one with a list.
Go
or
ahead.
narrative.
I'll send it right now while she's talking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trace.
I'll tag on to Joellen here because I had interest in this as well. I watched the PLP Community Forum on August 12th, 2020, which you participated with Mr. Verhoff, I believe.
Mhm.
And a parent that I talked to, I guess what I'm going to try to say is, assuming we're going to continue with a remote learning platform in the fall. I think this parent raises some very good points that I'll put the actual learning component of PLP aside, whether or not how effective it is, how penetrating, et cetera. Because I will focus on the social emotional learning part of PLP. I think this parent brought up a really good distinction that there are students too in Tipp City. They, for whatever reasons, they need a different modality than in classroom. However, they also need socialization, especially our little elementary students where it's a big deal. It's the beginning of how, you work with groups and take turns and forge these friendships. And so I think with some of these kids that are on PLP or even another platform, some other remote learning that they may have chosen, they're not integrated with Tipp teachers, with Tipp students, so they don't forge those relationships. And if they've been out for a year in PLP, their peers have continued to come into our buildings, continue to renew and expand those relationships with their little friends. And some of these kids, I think, are feeling like they're getting left behind. So I guess my plea would be to think really hard about if we do need to have a remote learning platform, to try to work hard to design it in such a manner that allows Tipp children to continue to interact with Tipp children at some level, whether it be, I asked this, I said, well, how would you solve this? And she kind of brainstormed, not knowing all the challenges, but possibly even if our students that are on remote learning could zoom into the classroom, let's say if it's at LT Ball, for example, and actually hear that the LT Ball teachers, see the LT Ball kids, get to know the names, they'll get to know the child that's zooming in, So I just think we need to focus hope we focus on a little more interconnectivity between the social and emotional children in the community.
Okay, so all great points. Thank you, Joellen. Thank you, Anne. So we will discuss this at the work session and we'll see what happens.
Fine.
Any other old business? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you, everybody. Item 8, new business. Can I get a motion for the consent agenda items?
I'll move.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Mrs. Dowell and Mrs. Heatherly. Whenever you're ready, Dave.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 9, new business. Approval of the revised policies and guidelines for the volume 39, number 2 update, including Edgar revisions and administrative guidelines update. And I'm sure we all know that, oh my gosh, 179 pages.
Yeah.
Everybody go around the room and say how long it took you to read these. I'm just kidding. So does anybody have, okay, hang on for a second.
The days.
Yeah,
obviously.
so can I get a motion in a second? Start that before we start discussing. I shouldn't have jumped ahead. I'll make the motion.
A second.
Okay, motion and seconded by Mrs. Dunaway and Mrs. Zakor. So
We're not voting.
This is not.
Oh, yeah, we're just reading it,
This
right.
is just discussion.
I did it right the first time. I always do that too. Every time we do this, I always do that.
Yeah.
One of these times, I'm not going to do that on the new read.
Well, it does say in the notes, it does say approval of, so.
I do that every time though. I mess it up every time.
Just a comment
Yeah.
for the board.
It was a lot of reading.
Yeah, if you haven't noticed already, and Ann said that she was there when Norm was describing, there are 12 policies, and they've got a nickname for the dozen, policies that are out there that all revolve around the updates to Title IX. That is its own standalone policy of almost 40 pages. But these other ones are tie-ins. And so what they're doing, as Ann said, they've got to align all the policies so that inside your own policy book, you don't have contradicting policies or misaligned policies. So that was a big chunk of it. And then the other ones either have a state or a federal statute tied to them. And so they've got to make sure they add sentences or revise language to make sure that your board policy is in alignment with all the statutes. So if any questions come up between now and the second read, please let me know.
I gave you my questions already.
Yep, you can contact Ann. She was also involved in the session that lasted an hour and 45 minutes. And Norm was excited. Norm was excited that we broke 2 hours, on the review. So he thought that was a goal for him too. So but it's a lot, and these, since they do them only twice a year, sometimes depending on how active legislatures have been, either at the state level or the national level, the revisions can be significant.
This is one of the biggest ones I remember. And I mean, it was a lot.
So, yeah.
I do have a specific question, and I did email you, Mr. Stefanik, about proposed policy 2240.
What page is that, Corinne?
Uh,
Don't worry, I'll find it. Go ahead.
Well, no,
Actually, the whole policy, I'm not sure it was
Okay.
in the packet, but sure you just go to your regular policy
Okay.
and find the unrevised one. And then you just
Okay,
have
well,
changes.
I wanted to talk about the proposed changes to it, which it deals with.
It's on page 4, Corinne. The
Thank you, Ann.
2240 is on page 4.
The controversial issues?
Yeah. Is that what
Oh,
you're talking
I
about?
thought your question was about administration and that wasn't part of the changes. But if you want to talk about some of the changes, fine. I interrupted, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's about policy 20, you said it's on page 4?
2240 is. Yeah.
Policy 2240 is controversial issues, and it has
revised.
the revised.
Right.
Is that what you meant?
Well, yeah, I was looking for the actual policy.
That's on page 54.
On page 54, okay. So either 54 or whatever.
To the left.
The thing about it that really kind of stood out to me was that the principal has oversight to bring in, let me see where it says.
Yeah, it says of an outside agency.
Yes, they can bring in,
Presenting.
right, and this is not about controversial issues that are covered in the course of a curriculum. It says, for the purposes of this policy, a controversial issue is a topic on which opposing points of view have been promulgated by responsible opinion or likely to arouse both support and opposition in the community. And I was just thinking about this policy in particular being placed on the shoulders of just one person. And how might we try to negate any issues in the future by either pre-supporting this or having a committee, at the high school, so that it has some kind of oversight. So that's just not one person saying yes or no. and so that it can be looked at collectively rather than just, you know, on, like, again, on the shoulders of just one person. I don't know, I think I asked you if Norm had additional wording for this policy. I'm not sure where this policy comes from. It doesn't look like it's from ORC.
You know, there should be a cross-reference at the bottom.
Can we add this to our work session?
Sure.
Does that give you time to reach out to Norm?
Oh, yeah, that's.
Well, just how does it work?
Typically, what they do is when they, especially when they do these updates, whatever part of the policy they updated, once they're finished with that update, it's the most current language, you know, that's out there. And so as I responded, if the board wants to consider, you know, revising it, then we have to double check with Norm and make sure it wasn't a significant enough revision to change the legally verified version that Neola put out there to begin with.
Yeah, because it's just that one line that says controversial issues may not be initiated by an outside source, by a source outside the school unless prior approval has been given by the principal.
Right.
So
That is a lot to put on one person.
that is a
I see
lot.
your point.
And it's controversial issues that are initiated by an outside source, not by students
Yeah, that's very
inside.
interesting.
Right, that is very interesting. So, and it's just that one line that really makes me pause.
Well, let's just go, I would be interested in, you know, looking at
Adding
that.
that
Would
to
anybody
reports.
else be interested? Does anybody else have a concern or interest to Corinne's point? Because I see her point.
Right, and it's just that one line. So if you just want to ask Norm and then get back
You
to us.
address that in the procedures, right? So I understand what you're suggesting, and I agree that, I guess I'm trying to understand what a scenario might be where someone is asking to come into the school.
Right,
But I
Yeah.
guess I was thinking when you started to talk about the other way around, that students have a concern. And so
yeah, that's
does
covered, yeah.
does the principal then reach out then to arrange to have, you know, two different groups come in and address the issue? Right,
Yeah.
so if that were the case, I would then agree that maybe something in the procedures suggests that, you know, the chain of command is followed as far as
Right,
approving speakers that are coming in
right.
this kind of circumstance, not other circumstances, but
Yeah, because you're trying to
Yeah.
protect the principal.
Yeah, again,
Yeah,
this
because
is,
nobody wants to put themselves in that
yeah, this is
situation.
not, we have wording for when it's initiated by students,
Mhm.
but this is controversial issues initiated by an outside source, outside of the school. So again, just that one line, I'm not really sure in what.
Yeah, like it could
Like-
say by the principal and superintendent, like even just adding that one
Right.
person,
Which-
that one source.
Without like approval of the
Yeah.
curriculum department, you know, that doesn't even name a
No,
person, but
right.
just says how that's gonna be handled, rather than a principal.
So how,
what is a scenario that would be?
I have no idea.
I can't.
I was thinking if somebody wanted to come in and talk about something like a heated topic or a hot topic, or, you know,
Right.
then it would be up to the building principal to say yes or no. And then Mark finds out, you know, the superintendent finds out about it and says, whoa, 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 what are you doing? And he says, well, it says in here, it says,
I
you know,
can do that.
approval given by the print. He didn't do anything wrong, he or
Right.
she.
And I think that we just have to be mindful of our principals in our community. So if a principal says yes, and then likely it's not gonna go to you first, Mark, it's gonna go to Facebook first, and then 5 other parents, and then you. So. how
And then
do
you
we-
say, what the heck? I didn't know we were talking about that in the high school or
Right.
middle school or whatever today. So anyway, how do you want to handle this, or how do you want to follow up on this, Mr. Stefanik?
No, I'll contact Norm.
Perfect. Okay, great.
And
And then
see
we
what
can
he
follow up with
suggests,
the
and
work
he will
session.
check with their, their attorneys and
Okay.
then get back with us.
And then if you want to ask them about, go ahead.
Steve, as a former principal, do you have any insights on what a scenario like this would be, or?
I'll be perfectly honest, I haven't read the policy, so I would have to reread the policy and go through and think about what that
Right.
scenario could be.
Can imagine that. I mean, I think a principal would want to make sure that they're holding the interests of the students and making sure anyone who's asking to come in is going to also look to balance that conversation with an opposing viewpoint, so.
Well, the other thing too is they might come in and say they're going to do one thing,
Yeah.
and then, you know what I mean? And then it's miscommunication where they get in and they start talking and then the poor principal says, oh my gosh, I did not know that that's the direction this was going. And then we're kind of have that aha moment, so.
Well, maybe Mr. Stefanik and Mr. Verhoff can ask the principals what their concerns are with this.
I like Corinne's idea of just fixing it in the policy, then we don't have to deal with it and then it's not an issue, right? If we can,
But we can discuss.
It's always better to
all those
fix it up
options.
front.
Yeah, yeah.
it's always better to fix it up front.
Yep, that's all I have.
May I say something on this section as well?
Absolutely.
On the same page, 2240, controversial issues, it would be 1, 2, 3, the fourth line down, the board will permit the introduction and proper educational use of controversial issues, provided that their use and the instructional program is A, related to the goals, B, does not tend to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view, and C, encourages open-mindedness, conducted in a spirit of scholarly inquiry. Sometimes I feel that just saying does not tend to indoctrinate or persuade doesn't really go far enough, because I think the real counter to that is actually giving a different, the opposing viewpoint. To me, that's really the least way of indoctrination, rather than just presenting one set of viewpoint and then leaving it go at that, versus
Yeah,
presenting
just give them
both
out there at
sets.
the beginning, right?
A lot of times these issues are based on current events.
Oh, yeah,
Something
absolutely.
just happens and then
Right.
it's all over the news.
And then we have a
everybody's
policy,
talking
right.
about it. And so then you want to bring it up. And the biggest thing is to, if it's just a class discussion, then the teacher's role is to facilitate to make sure that a balanced discussion happens in the
Well, I
classroom.
can give you a classic example right now. There is controversy in our country about the amount of military presence at the Capitol building. And so you could certainly bring in the argument for safety, orderliness, so this doesn't happen again. But I feel if you just leave it go at that, you're not really opening up the discussion to open-mindedness, because there's another side to that in terms of militarization, becoming a state militarized country, how, that affects other countries that are now being run by the military rather than the people. And so I'm just saying there's a controversial issue. I'm sure there's going to be people on both sides, but presenting both sides of an argument to me is paramount in order to not indoctrinate. Okay.
So Mark, since you have to go to Norm, do you want to ask him my question too about what was it, my officers, compliance?
The compliance.
Yeah, compliance officers.
Do you want to talk about that?
Oh,
question?
yeah, if Norm says no, then it's a silly, but anyway, my question was, it doesn't happen very often, but when there is a complaint and then the parents, staff, or student follow through, and then you go to the compliance officer, our compliance officers right now, to me, what's the training? I feel like we're putting them in a situation where maybe they're not really equipped to deal with that because they're not attorneys and they don't know our policies. So I just sent Mark an email, Mr. Spock an email, and I said, hey, what about, I know some districts use legal counsel for that because they do this, they're the experts. So I just threw that out there as a question. That was all. And it takes the bias out of it too, because they don't know any, it's like, here are the facts, here's the result, boom, you're done. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Citizen comments, we already did that. Don, Mr. Watson.
Anybody out there that didn't get it?
Oh, shoot, thank you for that. What, Joel? Okay,
Thank you.
great. Okay, so we have the superintendent and the superintendent report, COVID update and vaccinations.
Yeah, and we will most likely tag team on this because before the meeting started, as Mr. Verhoff was providing a preliminary update. He has been, pretty much Mr. COVID this entire school year.
That's a bad name.
And, but
No one noticed.
But, to that end, I mean, it is a multi-pronged hat that we gave him this year, and he took it on, with all the other responsibilities he had, and he's managed it pretty well, whether it be, troubleshooting with PLP families, monitoring data along with me to make determinations about, what we had to do in the late fall with the remote learning for the secondary schools, just tracking data and making that determination for our older students. Tracking the data again to get them back in, and then working with what seems like the ever-changing process of staff vaccines. But now we're on the doorstep of the staff vaccination process. And what is happening is each school was asked to partner with a medical group, and different medical groups in the area offered their services. We've got a pretty good partnership with Premier Health Systems, and that was one of the partners that was out there. And so we partnered up with them. We're not alone. Many school districts in this area have partnered up with them. And they said that they would set up vaccine clinics anywhere where they could get 700 plus participants in one place. So when everybody did their registrations, we had to make sure that we partnered up or we paired up with other school districts, and you just added together the number of participants for each school district until you got to 700 or greater. Then they could staff that and take care of that. So in our group, the Troy City Schools is the biggest school district, and they have the most participants. So they ended up being the host for our vaccination clinic. And so all of our vaccines will happen at, I believe, the high school, right?
Correct.
Troy High School. So we'll have to travel up the road a little bit to get our vaccines. And then we were waiting on our time slot, and we were sitting there hoping that we had a late enough in the day time slot that we could get in either a early dismissal day or a full day. But as it turns out, we ended up with pretty much high noon and right in the middle of the day. And so we're going to be there from 12:15 to 2:15, and we'll be registering for those time slots tomorrow and Wednesday. But we had to announce that we were going to have a remote learning day for our students. Otherwise, by the time everybody got in on the buses, it would be almost time to start sending the buses back home for the secondary students. And so it'd be more productive if it was just a remote day on Friday. So that's our plan now. Next step in the process is picking your time slot, and that 12:15 to 2:15, and that'll be run through Premier. And so folks that have signed up for vaccinations will get an instructional email from Premier by tomorrow, right?
Correct.
The window's supposed to open tomorrow. And so we'll all get set up for our first shots, and then our second shots will be March the 19th, which I also believe is a Friday.
It is.
And so we don't know yet if we're all slotted into the same time slots for the second shot. We might have to go out there and lobby again for a later afternoon time slot so that March 19th could have some in-person time for our students. But that's our schedule. And we thought the next one was going to be on the 26th, which is our last day of school before spring break.
Yeah.
So now we have a week before we have to go into spring break. And so if anybody has any mild side effects to the second shot, they have a week to get straightened out before spring break comes. So good for relaxation time if you're not feeling bad from a vaccination process. I leave anything out? Nope.
Okay, that takes us to item 12, miscellaneous upcoming meetings. The next work session meeting will take place on Tuesday, March 9th, 2021, beginning at 5 p.m. And the next regular Board of Education meeting will take place on Monday, March 22nd, 2021, at the Board of Education office, beginning at 6 p.m. At this time, we are going to adjourn to executive session for purposes authorized under Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22G1 to consider complaints against a public employee or official. Can I get a motion?
I'll
A second. Motion by Mrs. Dahl, seconded by
I'll second.
Mrs. Zakor. Ready for the roll, Dave? Oh, the board is going to invite Mr. Stefanik into the executive session, and we don't anticipate any action.
Dahl,
Yes.
Zakor,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes,
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
meeting adjourned.
We can take a 5-minute break.
Yes, yeah,
Ready to go
is that
into it.
okay? You want to go, Joanne, you want to, are you headed later? Okay, great, thank you.
you, but
Okay, go back.
Okay, we are back in our regular board meeting. It is 7:47. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Moved, can I get a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Mrs. Dahl and Mr. Patry.
Beat.
What?
I was joking, same beat.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Dahl,
Yes.
Patry.
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes,
Heatherly,
Yes.
Zakor.
yes.
meeting adjourned.
7:40.